Some prayed, some made political calls to action, others simply showed their sorrow. Soldiers from different branches of the Libyan armed forces, along with chanting zealots from the People's Militia, joined ordinary Libyans for the funeral. At one side, women gave the traditional North African song of grief. From the mosque, the funeral cortege moved to the cemetery. In near confusion, they buried their dead. In one coffin lay the body of a Lebanese-Palestinian girl, 18-year-old Rifat al-Husseini, who was home here for vacation to see her mother and her father, who works here as an engineer with Occidental Petroleum.
So all what this Ben Olil family was trying to do has been wiped out in minutes.
She came to see us, and there where she was killed by Mr. Reagan's airplanes.
Some of Tripoli's wounded were visited by Libyan leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, seen here last night on Libyan television. With its dead now buried and the cost being counted in military and human losses, Libya, like the United States, has yet to pay the full political cost. Charles Glass, ABC News, Tripoli.
This is Kenneth Walker at the White House. President Reagan today told wire service reporters he was sorry if American bombs killed any Libyan civilians, including Colonel Gaddafi's daughter. On the other hand, the president said he was equally sorry about the deaths on an Athens-bound TWA airliner of an American baby, her mother and grandmother, as well as 11-year-old Natasha Simpson, shot down during a terrorist attack last December at the airport in Rome.
Overseas in Libya today, there were street demonstrations to celebrate what Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's government still refers to as its victory over the United States. It was a year ago tonight that U.S. jet bombers took off from British air bases. Some hours later, they were dropping bombs on Libya. The Reagan administration says the attack was intended to deliver a political message that terrorism will not be tolerated. So what's the assessment of the bombing a year later? Here's our Pentagon correspondent, Bob Zelnick.
The long-range F-111s took off from Britain's Lakenheath Air Base, later joined by carrier-based Navy planes.
You can just get his gas and go.
They flew the long way around Europe, refueling in flight. Even 1 year later, the identity of the pilot who commanded the mission had to be protected in this exclusive ABC News interview.
I was the first airplane 4 or 5 seconds prior to my bombs impacting the ground. I saw a anti-aircraft gun open up and start firing at my aircraft.
And was President Gaddafi himself one of the targets?
Gaddafi was not a target of my attack.
Only one U.S. plane was lost.
We were assigned 3 targets, and we struck 3 targets, and complete mission success.
To this day, the administration claims the operation was also a political success.
I think it did carry the message that it was intended to, that terrorism has a terrible cost attached to it.
The action was the first in a series of international setbacks for Gaddafi, culminating with the rout of his forces in Chad and the loss of perhaps billions in military equipment.
It removed from him a cloak of invulnerability that heretofore had been ascribed to him.
The number of terrorist assaults on targets in Western countries has gone down this past year, but experts say the change in state-sponsored terrorism is largely cosmetic.
I think the pattern of behavior will be one of not abandoning terrorism as a policy tool, but rather being a lot more careful about getting caught using it.
Evidence linking Libya to the bombing of a Berlin discotheque was the immediate cause of the raid, but doubts about that evidence persist in many European quarters. And the Europeans continue to show little enthusiasm for the use of force. For example, they reacted nervously when the U.S. recently dispatched carriers to the Mediterranean after new hostage seizures in Lebanon. Analysts note the Europeans have arrested some terrorists and expelled others, but they're addressing their own needs, not America's.
They took a number of measures calculated to preempt the need for further unilateral American action.
In the struggle against terrorism, events can be more dramatic than climatic. By most reckoning, the raid on Libya was a political and military success, but a small one with many battles still to be fought.